This happened on a night just like every other. I was still just a kid and was just starting high school at the time. My parents had sent me to bed and then gone to bed themselves in their room on the other side of the house. Although I was supposed to be sleeping, I had a presentation due tomorrow and I needed to have the words memorized. Of course, being the kid I wasn't fully prepared. I cared about my grades, as did my parents, but procrastination was something I struggled with. I sat in my bed reading the script over and over, trying my best to memorize the whole thing as fast as possible. After a while, though, it was late and I knew I needed to sleep. I shoved my schoolwork off the bed and laid under the covers, closing my eyes. I felt confident in the first section of the presentation, but the last section I could barely remember and was worried about losing grasp of it overnight. So, as I laid there, I began reciting the words in my head, over and over the ending paragraphs of my presentation. I lost track of time, having not even opened my eyes once for what seemed like 20 or 30 minutes of reciting in my head. Now, feeling more confident in myself, I figured I was finally okay to go to sleep. I continued to lay in the same position for another few minutes before I was startled by a soft sound right in front of my bed by the closet. I opened my eyes quickly, looking straight down the edge of the bed. The room was pitch black, but in the darkness I could see a figure standing by my closet. I couldn't make out its features, but it was tall and standing still. Immediately at the sight of this, my heart started racing and I tried to scream as loud as I could, but my mouth wouldn't move. I tried to get up and run, but my body wouldn't move either. It was as if I could feel myself stuck on the inside of a shell, trying to push my way out, but nothing was working. The more I tried to struggle inside, the more it felt like a large weight sat on my chest, making me struggle to even breathe as I couldn't open my mouth. The only thing I could do was look at this figure ahead of me. I was absolutely horrified, never having experienced anything like this before. I thought that maybe I was in a nightmare, but it was all too real. I knew I was not asleep. Then I began wondering if I was paralyzed. Would I be this way forever? But these thoughts were overrun by the immediate danger of the figure in front of me. After a minute of terrifying anxiety, the figure began to move, slowly walking to the end of my bed. As it approached, I could hear my heart beating rapidly and my blood pumping through me intensely. I tried everything to move and scream and run, but I was frozen. As it reached the bed, I still could not see its face. I could tell it was there, but it was like a dark shadow was casting over it, covering all of its features. I wanted to cry or wake up or anything to end this awful night, but after it stood there for another few seconds, it put its long arms on the bed and began crawling towards me. It slowly moved over my body, still with a shadow covering its face, before stopping right above my head. My eyes wide open and with fear surging through me, a long second passed of total silence before the figure quickly leaned its face directly in front of mine, screaming with its mouth wide open and staring into my eyes. Then, in an instant, it vanished. Gone, just like that. The screams, the figure, everything, all went silent and disappeared. As I laid there, shocked and terrorized, I felt my hand shaking. Then, as if it never even happened, I was able to move again. I leaned forward and looked around frantically, still unsure of the experience I just had. Being just a kid, I began wondering if demons were real, and that's what I just saw. I wondered if what I had just experienced was actually there, or if all of it was just a hallucination. When this happened, it was the late 1980s, so I couldn't just look it up and see what it was. Plus, I was too scared to tell anyone of it, thinking they may send me to some mental hospital or something. So, I went 15 years not knowing what happened that night. It wasn't until I was driving home from work one day and had the radio on that I finally learned the truth. The host was talking about an experience he had on a podcast-type show, and his description was disturbingly similar to mine. The radio show was still going on by the time I reached my home, so I stayed in my car while listening intently. He continued explaining his terrifying encounter until the very end when someone asked him what he thinks really happened. After a pause, he finally spoke the answer I'd been searching for all these years and said that it was something horrible and terrifying called sleep paralysis. I've been experiencing sleep paralysis ever since I could remember. Since it happened so frequently, I thought it was normal and harmless, and my parents assured me the same. I never had any hallucinations or anything. I would simply just wake up randomly in the middle of the night and only be able to open my eyes and look around. It would always be a little freaky, as I'd want to pull the sheets over my head to hide, but was unable to. Anyway, there was a single experience that I had that really creeped me out, and I still think about it today. I was 11 at the time, and it was a school night after a nice weekend. At 9 o'clock, my parents made me get ready for bed and turned off all the lights as I got comfortable, holding my plushy doll between my arms. Then, just like any other night, I fell asleep. I never knew why my brain would wake me up at night, leaving me paralyzed and conscious. But as dumb as this may sound, the common reason seemed to be no reason at all. However, this night when I woke up, something felt different. I was more worried than usual, and only a few seconds after opening my eyes, I heard movement below me from downstairs. I had no way of seeing what time it was, but I knew my dad would stay up late sometimes, so I tried to calm myself. But the movement became more clear, revealing soft footsteps coming up the stairs very slowly. Even as a kid, I knew the difference between the sound of someone casually walking up the stairs and someone walking up quietly and carefully. I began to panic a bit more in my mind, though still trying to hush my thoughts as the footsteps approached my bedroom door and stopped. Now, my parents always warned me that hallucinations are a common side effect of sleep paralysis, and although I had never experienced them before, one day I was sure to. They described it as something like a nightmare that just feels real, but when it happens, I just have to keep telling myself that it isn't real and it will be over soon, just like any other dream. So, laying there immobile, I closed my eyes and repeated in my head that this was just a dream and nothing was real. After a minute went by, I opened my eyes again and felt a sense of relief as I was sure the nightmare had ended. That was, until my bedroom door slowly creaked open. I was practically holding my breath in fear as I watched what looked like a man walk into my room slowly. I closed my eyes again, hoping to get this awful nightmare to end. I listened as the soft footsteps on the wooden floors approached the side of my bed. I was too scared to even open my eyes and continued to repeat in my head that this was just a dream and I needed to wake up. I felt the man breathing on my shoulder as my doll was taken from my side. Then the footsteps faded away down the end of the room. I slightly opened my eyes, still horrified, and got a glimpse of the man walking away with my doll and closing the door quietly. Even then, I still couldn't move. I just closed my eyes again and tried to control my emotions, but it was hard. Every awful thought I could think of was going through my head all at once. I don't even remember falling back asleep. When I woke in the morning, though, I was much more at ease. I sat up and looked around, making sure this wasn't some weird dream again. Everything seemed normal until I looked at my side. The doll wasn't there. All the emotions suddenly hit me again, and I began crying as I ran to my parents' room and woke them up. They didn't seem too surprised when I explained myself, having expected something like this to happen. My dad got up, though, and came to my room to help me look for my doll. He assumed I had just misplaced it, and it would turn up quickly like it usually does, but strangely, it didn't. Still not worried at all, my dad began searching the rest of the house. He knew how much the doll meant to me, and probably just wanted to make me feel better about my nightmare, but we still couldn't find it. In fact, We never did. I had never experienced sleep paralysis until a few months ago. I'd always felt lucky listening to other people's stories about it. It sounded horrifying, but my luck ran out apparently. I think it was because I was insanely stressed or anxious, as I'd only had it a few times after that, and then it stopped. The worst one, though, was the first time. I had fallen asleep pretty quickly, but I have a habit of waking up around the same time every night to go to the bathroom. Tonight was no different, except when I woke up, I was so tired I decided to hold it and just go back to bed. I was trying to fall back asleep when I realized I couldn't move. This has never happened before, so my heart started to race, and that's when I heard the door creak open. I was laying on my side with the blanket mostly on my face, so I couldn't see anything. I remember feeling so scared and frightened, and then I heard voices. 2 male voices talking on the other side of my bed. I tried to yell for help from my roommate, but I couldn't. I couldn't speak at all. This made me even more anxious, and my heart started pounding even harder. I felt like I couldn't breathe. These people that were in my room started moving to my side of the bed. I could hear them speaking to each other, but couldn't understand what they were saying. I kept my eyes closed and hoped they thought I was asleep and would just take whatever they were here for and then leave. The only thought in my mind was that they were robbers. It all felt so real, and I even wondered why my dog didn't bark or how I didn't hear anything downstairs. I'm a light sleeper after all. I kept my eyes shut and tried to remain calm, but one of them felt so close I could hear him breathing right next to me. He then whispered something, as if talking to me. I heard them walk away, and then the door slammed shut. I still couldn't move, so I laid there until I fell asleep. What's even weirder is that night I had a dream that I got up after they left to check if they stole my money, and they had. I dreamt that I woke my roommate up and told him everything. We checked the video cameras and saw 2 men go into my room and walk up to me. Then we went downstairs to ask our other roommates if they saw anything, but when we went down there, they were already on the phone with the police as our living room TV was gone and everything was a mess. I've never had such a vivid dream, and the fact that it picked up right where my sleep paralysis left off was even weirder. Obviously, the next morning when I woke up, I checked to see if everything was still there, and it was. Nothing was on the video cameras, but I swore that it felt so real, and I was sure I was awake. It was the strangest experience of my life. After that night, I had a few moments where I couldn't move or breathe, and would hear the door open, or the door of a different room close. I always sleep on my side, so I've never actually seen any figures like a lot of other people do. So in that way, I'm lucky, but having auditory hallucinations at night is almost more horrifying, as you can't look to see what's going on. You just have to listen and hope that whatever it is doesn't actually exist. Otherwise, you may not be as lucky as I was.